summer school age live stream question and answer session tonight for the La Crosse Area Family YMCA. We are so happy to be here with you tonight. During this really unprecedented time, we wanted to take a minute to just thank all those families who have trusted us with their care already and through this time with the emergency child care that we've been offering. We want to recognize our staff who have been providing that care and who have given their time and energy every single day. And then we also wanted to make sure that we thank and support our cleaning staff and those who are feeding kids. So before we get on much further, I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Jennie. I'm the Director of Culture and Youth Development here at the La Crosse Area Family YMCA. And with me I have...
I am Shane Drake. I'm the Senior School Age Care Director with the La Crosse YMCA. So we're really looking forward to being able to answer some of the questions that you've submitted to us because at the end of the day, we know that what's most important is for you guys, for families to understand what we're going to do to keep children and families safe, and we are excited for an opportunity to share that with you.
We come here on a week where it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and we appreciate all the teachers who are our own teachers within our child care programs and our school age programs, but all the teachers out there, they're all learning how to do online learning. And guess what? We're learning about technology as well.
Yeah.
So here we are, our first live Facebook stream. We'll see if maybe we'll ever do this again. So we want you to know that we miss you and that it's not the same at the Y without all our families and kids. We are very thankful to be working alongside our community to run a very successful program for your families. Working with the school superintendents, we're working with the La Crosse County Health Department and also the Department of Children and Families who operates and regulates our child care programs. So Shane, tell us a little bit about what's going to happen tonight.
All right. So again, it's our first live Facebook feed. And like I had mentioned before, we want to be able to answer some of the questions that you had submitted in advance. We also we have somebody helping us out, Katie Miller, will be helping us out with if you post questions as we go along. We're going to do our best to get everything that you want to know, get your questions answered tonight. But certainly understand that if we don't want you to walk away with questions, please be sure to post them or to email me, and we just want to make sure that you get your questions answered. So we are going to start off with just some kind of general stuff. We're going to start off with a little bit about some questions about like how do we get to have this programming and when does it start?
So we are fortunate enough to work with the school districts. We are starting our program on June 8th as originally scheduled. Many questions have come in of how can you operate in school buildings when school buildings are shut down? And I just want to clarify, and we've been working really closely with the schools, that school buildings are shut down for school programming purposes. But the buildings are available to us because we offer child care programming and child care operations. And so we'll be offering our program starting June 8th. And we want to make sure that we can support all of the children and their development and get our families back to work. So it has more to do with the fact that we can offer child care programming in the school where schools can't provide the school programming through June 30th at this time. And also a number of questions, and hot on our minds and everybody's minds right now is safety, and it's definitely number one for all of us and all of our programs here. So we want to know and we want to reassure you that we are really working closely with the local health department. They are the ones who are in charge of telling us what we can and can't do. We have guidance with the Department of Children and Families around offering childcare, and of course they've made recommendations based on this COVID time. But our health department is our line that we talk to, and we talk to them at least on a weekly basis through all of these efforts. So they're well aware of what we're doing, and we're definitely putting their recommendations into place. So we want to make sure that we can give you specifics in the future when we're working with school building principals. And I'll let Shane take over a lot of the details of the program.
All right, that's good. So families had asked, what is that check-in process going to look like? Are we going to be taking temperatures? and will kids or staff need to be wearing face coverings? So I want to start with what that check-in process is going to look like. Currently at the childcare that the 2 Y locations where we're offering childcare, we have families answer a series of questions that help to ensure that they haven't been to a place where COVID is more prevalent or that it is spreading kind of more rampantly. We take temperatures. We just make sure that people haven't traveled out of the area without doing some quarantining first. And those questions were supplied to us in combination with Gunderson and the La Crosse County Health Department. And so if those questions change, we change with them so that we're staying up to date on where we're worried about if people have traveled or come from certain counties.
Shannon, I just want to jump in for a minute. There is an algorithm that La Crosse County Health Department uses to help guide us if there's a positive case, if there's screening questions about children's health and wellness or parents' health and well-being. And so that's what we go back to, and what we use is that algorithm, and that today looks one way and it might be updated, weekly or in the future. So we are using that as our guide. So.
Is that on the La Crosse? Is that on their website?
Yeah, I believe
Super.
that it's part of their business toolkit and operating toolkit, and so it's definitely out there. We're more than happy to share any specific questions that we're following today.
Yeah.
Do we answer those questions daily when we come in?
Yep. So this looks like the question that was posted was, do we answer those questions every day when we come in to drop off our children? Yes, we do. The staff answer them. The parents answer them for themselves and the children that they're dropping off. We also take temperature of everybody who walks through the door. So the staff, the children, and then as supports and directors, every time we're going to walk through a door, we are going to have to answer those questions, and we are going to have to be following those measures to keep everybody safe. The specifics around where we're going to enter a program area and what exactly that's going to look like, we're still meeting with superintendents and principals at schools, because we want to make sure that we can honor people being able to keep social distance if there's a couple families dropping off at one time. But then to also just really make sure that we don't have anybody other than people using our program entering through that door. So that's one of the things that we're really working on with school leaders, is to make sure that school age programming is the only people using that entrance and exit.
And don't you think, Shane, we probably should mention that right now our sign-in process is at the door with parents, and so to limit even more exposure within our programs, parents are dropping at the door and the children are coming in, and not necessarily letting every parent come into our program to drop off their children.
You mean at the care that we're currently providing?
Yeah, and for the summer, yeah. So parents aren't going to be coming into our program area, they're going to be dropping their children off at the door and going through a screening process at the door.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we'll learn a lot of a learning curve for everybody. So, and then one of the last questions kind of in that category was about wearing face covering. It's certainly optional and available to all of our staff if they want to use it. We are not making it mandatory. We're not making it mandatory for the children. When this question came up a couple weeks ago while we were offering emergency care, we really took a look at what that meant for building relationships with the kids, between the staff and the children, and between the children, building relationships, because that's something that is extremely important to us at the Y. And if the recommendation were ever to be more heightened, or that it became mandatory that we needed to, we would take a look at how we needed to do that. But for now, we're ensuring our safety by doing those measures before we come into the door, and then while we're in programming, just being able to, and of course optional, but not mandatory at this time.
Yeah, one thing we've also found, I think I remember talking to you the other day, Shane, is one of the preventative measures of passing passing germs and any virus is hand washing. And I think I heard you say that we are practicing a lot more hand washing. You know, with our regulations with licensed care, we're used to that cleaning and disinfecting, but hand washing has been one of those things. And we'll talk about cleaning procedures a little bit later, but that safety measure of extra hand washing, I feel like, is also a high priority for us this summer.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and currently. Yeah.
And currently.
Yes.
Always the summer and now,
For
yeah,
sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So in addition, we've had the question of, will kids be permitted to use the playground equipment at schools? And likely this is a question for safety, but also how are we going to keep your kids active? So we'll get the answer to the active in a little while when Shane talks about our programming. But from a safety standpoint, we're just not sure about playgrounds. Right now, all of the playgrounds are closed in our communities to make sure that we limit the spread of COVID. And so we are not using playgrounds. We'll definitely take the guidance from the CDC, the Department of Children and Families, and of course the local health department. But right now, we're not planning to use playgrounds until we're given the okay to do that safely. We just wouldn't want to spread, and we know that the playgrounds at schools are such a community gathering place. And again, we're trying to keep our children in groups and limit exposure in our programs. You know, and then along with that, you know, questions come with cleaning and sanitizing. People want to know what we're doing. And again, we're a very regulated program. Childcare are very regulated about when we have to clean, how do we clean toys, how do we sanitize, you know, table and eating areas, and when do we wash hands with the adults and the children. So again, we'll be using best practices, a lot more signage around in our areas. We've been working very closely with the school districts about how they will be cleaning our spaces each evening, what chemicals we will be using, and so we can assure you that we will be cleaning throughout the day in our programs, and those high touch points like door handles, tables, you know, walls where kids might touch more often, and then working with the school districts to clean the spaces each evening and disinfect. So I'm going to pass it on to some more exciting news, and Shane gets to talk about the exciting programming that we have ready for your kids this summer. So take it
So,
over.
and this is the part that I've really been looking forward to, because there's a lot of information that we've all gotten, and I feel like every time there's new information, everybody feels like they have to take a little bit of a step back, and they go, oh, okay, well, I kind of figured that was coming. But I am so proud of my school age care team and what they have decided to do to keep kids active, engaged, and just like, summer is a time for fun, and it's a time for hanging out with your people, and just they've come up with some amazing stuff. So, field trips. Instead of us going to the field trips, we are going to be bringing the field trips to us. There are a lot of local artists and artisans who are also feeling the effects of COVID, and they don't have shows right now. We've contacted them, and there are a number of them that are going to come and hold clinics and performances for our children. Just to name a few, we've got magicians coming, we've got baton twirlers, theater and improv groups, and all of these people are working with our children. They're all gonna like teach them how to do magic tricks with household items, or how to twirl a baton, all that good stuff. We've got local libraries ready to come in and do stories with us. We are gonna be doing pen pals between different sites, and you know, of course, following all the safety that we need to. Humane Society, Children's Museum, an Inventors Club. Don't know much about that, but today when I was learning about it, I was like, wait a minute, now I want to do that. So it's like engaged, entertained, and staying active. You know, at the Y, we always talk about our healthy snacks and keeping kids engaged and active. Very important that we are keeping them active.
So Shane, I just want to interject a little bit too. I think people are probably wondering about bus trips,
Gotcha.
and usually we're going off-site, and can we bus to field trips, and why aren't we doing that as
Okay.
much this summer? So.
Okay, yeah, so right now, busing is not an option for us. So that is something that is what I would say out of our control in the way that we right now, we know that when the children are with us, we know what our cleaning and protocol is. Field trips, right now, we just don't necessarily have a place to go. So we are gonna start out absolutely without hopping on a bus and going somewhere. If it works out that we can guarantee that we can do it safely and that we can send our kids to places, or even if it's just a matter of getting them to a park that's a little bit further away so that they have some new experiences, we're absolutely going to do that, but always under that safety umbrella.
I think the other heavy question is swimming, and that's a biggie, and that's a
It
hard
is.
one for us to answer.
Yeah.
Want to address that a little bit?
I do. I know that a lot of our summer programming revolves around being able to go swimming. We do know already that lacrosse pools have made the decision not to open this summer. We are waiting to hear from other local community pools about their official decision. As far as community pools, that is going to be one more of those things that if we learn that it's okay and we learn that it is safe, it is something that we would consider. But there's a lot more variables here. So I'm more apprehensive about that one. For using the Y for a place to swim, that is something that we feel like we can make our guarantees. If we say that we're going to be safe, we're going to be safe about it. So we would be in a locker room that had been disinfected. We would be the only people in the pool area. This is not going to happen right away. This isn't right away when we start programming. I don't believe we're going to be able to do swim lessons this summer. But when it's safe and when we have lifeguards and it's safe for us to be on buses and go to locations, our Y is certainly here to support our school-age care kids in our communities. So
Yeah.
when we can.
Yeah, and I think it's a really hard decision. I mean, we're still waiting on word of what we can do at the YMCA and how we can open the Y, and so we just need to make sure that we're making the best and safest decisions for everybody who would be using the Y. So we have had some conversations of could we have smaller groups, and we've mentioned the word groups a lot of times, Shane, and I think that we haven't really addressed group size for the
Fair.
summer. So
Okay.
would you like to maybe touch on that before you go into the rest of the program?
Absolutely. So I'm also going to take this moment to say thank you to anybody who is listening, and in the last week, if you've received a phone call that let you know that day camp was not able to operate, or that a location that you were registered for, that we had to reduce numbers there. Families have been absolutely amazing and supportive for the changes that we've had to make, and I believe that I know everybody who wanted care has care, and people have been flexible with letting us move their kids to places. When we registered families back in March, we filled them up, and we could take 60 kids at a site. One of the changes that has been made is that they've capped it at 50. With 50 kids maximum at a site, we are going to have 2 groups of 25, and we're going to keep them, we're going to minimize the amount of intermingling that they have.
Good.
So,
Good.
which is one more reason, nope, we're not going to hop on the bus.
Right. Yeah, thank you for,
Yeah.
I think that was probably weighing on people's minds of how large of
You
groups are
keep
we
saying
talking?
group.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Another question was, what's our programming going to look like? There's a part of me that goes, well, a little bit like it always did, because we show up and we've got centers ready for the kids, and we serve them a healthy breakfast, and then we have a morning meeting, and then we break into like 3 different groups or 3 different little stations that they go to, and STEM activities and craft activities and interest areas and organized games and outside running around. So that's going to stay the same. Your children are still going to go home tired. Yeah. So
Keep them busy.
yeah. So and another thing to mention too is if we're not able to use the playground equipment, we've got green space everywhere that we're going. We're going to be able to use the blacktop. We're going to be able to use the green space. We've already talked about making sure that we have plenty of sprinklers and hoses and tarps and kiddie pools so that we can just get those water activities in there, because if we can't be at a pool, you know, July is just the time to be, you know,
Hot and wet.
Running around and sliding down a slip and slide on a tarp. So.
Right.
All right, so the morning's going to kind of look the same. It'd be kind of more academic in like STEM, environmental ed. Mm-hmm. Afternoons, we are pretty excited about one more like props to my school age care director team. They have decided to develop a bunch of interest camps for the kids. And we don't mean like, hey, let's go out and kick a soccer ball around and play a game of soccer. We're talking about starting at the beginning of the week and running drills and having them learn specific skills so that towards the end of the week we can really build up toward some kind of, hey, look what we've learned this week, whether it's a performance or it's a game or a show and tell. And yeah, the basketball, soccer, football, dance, yoga, sculpture, jewelry making,
golf and tennis on the
golf,
list too.
yeah, golf, tennis, geocaching, gymnastics, parkour, martial arts, and with a lot of these, we've got directors and leaders throughout the YMCA who have offered to come in, give their time because that's their expertise, and they're going to come in and have that programming for our children.
So it sounds like we're really bringing the program to the kids. I really, you know, something you said that I really thought of is, you know, our children have been learning in a very different way. And when we were talking to school leaders, we were talking about how can we really help build and keep these children learning and be ready for school in the fall, for whatever that'll look like, but getting kids back and continue their learning so they're ready to go back to school in the fall and not have so much of that summer learning loss that we know that kids, you know, sometimes experience.
And along those lines, I think I've heard from a lot of parents and friends that are now teaching at home and just that routine. Yeah. And our children have lost a lot of their routine, and that is something that the school age care program has always recognized the importance of that, but we are absolutely going to have a routine so that kids can expect what's coming. They know what it is. We've worked another meeting into the day, so we've got a morning meeting and an afternoon meeting so that we can talk about what their options are, talk about what that day is going to look like, talk about expectations, and as you know, per usual, we're going to also be talking about how they can take care of themselves. We know that a lot of people are going to be coming into our program having just kind of been in their house with their siblings and their family for quite some time. We are going to pay extra special attention to make sure that the kids are feeling heard, that they are able to kind of identify how they're feeling, that we're doing we're giving a lot of attention to that social and emotional learning aspect for our kids, because I mean, we all need it.
Right.
We all need it. So.
Well, Shane, before you get to some of the ending questions, I think I want to just address the big question. One of the big questions that we've had is, hey, are you going to reduce our fees because you're not taking field trips and swimming? And you know, we've really thought about that. We've weighed that. We've talked to a lot of other YMCA programs, and we've really looked at the value of our program, and we think a lot of it. And we also are reallocating our funds into how do we bring this program and build it right at the school for the kids and build this program. So we're definitely reallocating our funds. We're having to put in some extra safety measures, cleaning measures, extra staff to screen children in and out every day. And so we are at this time not reducing our fees for our summer program. But again, assure you that we are making a quality program decision, and we will be putting our resources to bringing all of that to your children this summer. So.
Absolutely. Good question.
Yeah, and Katie, I'm just gonna check to see if there's any questions online at all that we should raise up here that maybe we haven't talked about.
Sure. There was a question asking if a child travels out of the area, will they be asked to stay out of program, and if so, how long?
That is a really great question, and we're just starting to handle that here, and that is a really great question where we will go back to the La Crosse County Health Department and have to ask that specific question, because right now we have to screen our staff for what area they're coming to or where they're working. And if they come from a viral hotbed, is what they call it, area, an example of that would be Milwaukee County or Brown County in our state right now. And if they're coming from that area, our staff need to self-quarantine in the county before they can start working. So that might be a question that we have to answer as we get closer and as the safer at home orders lifted. How I would answer that today is probably yes if you're coming and traveling to a specific county or state. So you might want to reach out to us to ask us, but again, that's one of those questions we might just not know more about till the time comes.
I'm going to refer to that algorithm on the La Crosse County Health Department. That has really guided me in, if yes, this, if no, this. And it just has really helped me get a grasp on what happens if I'm having a fever, what happens if I'm not feeling well. And it was really helpful for me to understand because there's, I think, 4 different levels of quarantine referenced on there.
Shannon, you're exactly right. There's a lot of questions that might be coming up of what if somebody tests positive for COVID? Are you going to have to close down? What if a family member? And all of those questions will be driven by the health department, but that algorithm right now really answers a lot of that question. We're hoping we don't have to close down, but we do have other program spaces, and there's the option to move our program to other areas, and so it will really be dependent. We know that people depend on childcare, and we will work together with the health department to make sure that we can keep childcare up and running, because we know it's so essential. Mm-hmm. Any other questions, Katie?
A couple people have asked if we could elaborate on the distancing and the grouping. And then there was also a question about if we will be still requiring a 2-week notice if a family decides to pull from care.
Ooh, great questions. I feel like we need to start making a list of new questions
Yes,
to come up with answers with.
Write that down.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Our note taker is taking note of some of these questions. I think we'll have to, at this point, I would answer the yes, you have to give us a 2-week notice at this point, because we do have new families that are still waiting to cancel, and so
To get registered.
Excuse me, to get registered, not to cancel. People aren't waiting to cancel; they're waiting to get registered. And so, I would say at this time the answer is yes, but things could change as we're finding things are changing a lot. Do you want to answer a little bit about social distancing and how that looks?
Can you rephrase, please?
Let me find.
I'll start talking a little bit about, so we do our absolute best with the children to encourage that social distancing and to keep their hands away from their faces. And I would say those are the 2 biggest battles that we currently fight and constantly reminding. And we had a conversation earlier about, hey, do we still want to be so strict with our screening in process? And I think that absolutely, I'm passionate about that screening in process staying how it is, because we will do our best to keep kids from touching their faces. We'll be working on them creating social distance, but we will play games. We will be interacting with each other. We'll be sitting at lunch tables together. So that screening part, I think is going to be really important.
I think we'll definitely do our best to social distance and teach children how to do that, but sometimes with kids in those environments, it's challenging for it not to cross over, but we'll definitely do our best, and we've all learned a lot through this process and how to communicate. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there was another question about group sizes, and I think, Shane, if I was understanding you correctly, we will have 50 children at each site, and no more than 50 children, and 10 staff at a site at one time. And what we will do is try to keep those children in 2 separate groups of 25. So there would be groups of 25 with a couple staff each in those groups throughout the day. And we're going to avoid the commingling of those groups of 25. So let us know, send us in or email us if you still have more questions about the group sizes and grouping. Again, we're following our licensing rules and regulations and the health department rules, so on that one.
There was a question, will the locations for what we registered still stay the same, or now that they're only able to take 50 kids, or is there a chance that those will change?
Great question.
That's a super question, and I am happy to say everybody is placed. So if you were registered at a location and you have not heard from us, you can double check if you log on to your account with the YMCA. You can see where you are registered. But we have contacted all of the families where we had to move a couple kids to a different location. So, yep, everybody's where they're at. Yeah. So great question though.
And then the last one that I saw was the questions that we don't have answers for. When we learn answers, how will we share what we know with everyone?
Super. So when we have, right now we're kind of dealing with some bigger questions that kind of affect a lot of different sites. So pools, can we ride a bus? And that will affect all of the sites. That information, I'll be sending updates to families who are registered along the lines of, hey, here's a decision that we've made based on facts and what we've learned from local health officials. If it's something that's a more specific along the lines of, hey, my child is registered at these 2 lacrosse locations, the lacrosse school age director will be emailing families with specifics around where do I enter the building? How do I enter the building? So if it's kind of more school or district specific, it will be coming through an email from your director. And if it's kind of program wide, it would be coming from me.
I know, Shane, we've talked too about a lot of these questions is, hey, we had the option to just come up with a paper, frequently asked questions and send it out to you, but we wanted to try bringing this to you live, technology. And so but we are gonna go back old school, I guess, and put it on paper and document it down and post it. We can post it on our website and have our frequently asked questions. And then if there's something on there that you didn't get an answer to, we are doing email updates to our families. So, and this, like I said, is our first Facebook live stream. Who knows? Maybe we'll bring the Jennie Shane show back next week. We'll see about that. We'll see what kind of feedback we get on this one.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And I think, are there any other last questions before we close out with some details?
How will groups be divided or separated within the schools? So like the groups of 25.
Oh,
It will kind of depend on the school.
Yeah.
Like some schools will have different rooms that we can be in.
right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you could hear Katie answering that question, but how will we divide groups of kids? And it'll really depend on the school and what spaces we can use in the school and what that will look like within the school building. So we might, have a group in the cafeteria and a group in the gym, and then they might, we might clean in between and then flip-flop them. So it'll really depend on the school.
And our school relationships are just amazing. We have had principals and superintendents really working with us and wanting us to be able to offer this programming. So what we're really shooting for is to have each group have its own home base in a spot. So,
That's great.
and that's what we're shooting for. So,
Okay. That's great.
all right.
Want to close us out with some details?
I will. Okay, so we've got our current families registered. We are now going to be opening it up to new families. They've been waiting so patiently to figure out
Thank you.
what is available for summer. So we are still processing registrations. One of the questions maybe was about what happens if they make a decision about summer school.
Oh, right.
So if the district, one of the districts or whoever, if they make a decision about summer school, we will take families anywhere that we have space, but we're going to make sure that we don't exceed that 50 maximum, and that we'll take people where we've got.
So, in other words, if families are saying, hey, I need these extra 3-4 weeks in the summer, if we have availability, they can sign up for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yep. So again, we know that the most important thing for you is to have the information in front of you and shared with you, and for you to have an understanding of what our program is going to look like, as well as everything that we're doing to make sure that our families that we serve are safe. I hope that you got the information that you were looking for this evening. Please reach out to me if you have any other questions or concerns. It's just very important to me that I feel that you have all the information that you need to make a decision that's best for you for the summer. If you need to make any changes to your current registration, child care billing, make sure you give Holly an email at childcarebilling@laxymca.org. We will list that email address we'll get that posted on there so that you don't have to remember that. But if you are wanting to make any changes, and you would want to make them by May 12th to avoid that $10 a week registration fee. So thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for being a part of our school age care community. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that there are some people out there that got to see some familiar faces that they haven't seen in a long time. Just thank you so much for supporting the Y and letting us continue the work that we do.
Yeah. Thank you. We miss you, and we are so happy that you're staying with us and that you'll be back